Good morning, everybody. You're welcome to the plenary session from Nigeria. The first one today, the 19th of October, 2022. It's good and wonderful to be here this morning. Without further delay, I'm just going to introduce the topic for the day, which is technological innovation for inclusive growth, assessment, and what lies ahead. This is the 8th year, and we're proud to be part of the celebration of Financial Inclusion Week across the world. I'm going to call on the moderator for this morning. This is no other person than Stephen Aber. He's going to be the moderator and he's going to introduce every other person on this platform today. Good morning, Stephen. It's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Solu. Good morning and welcome everybody to this session. We're excited to be on day 3 of this
Unmute yourself, Stephen. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, unmuted. Can you hear me now? Okay. So thank you very much. And I mean, today it's going to be a big day. In the next 1 hour, we'll be discussing a whole lot, as you said, on technological innovations for inclusive growth. I'm very, very privileged to be moderating this session with some great industry leaders, and in the next few minutes, we'll be talking about how we can leverage technology basically, to drive financial inclusion. Yesterday, we listened in to see how we can leverage on the agency banking, and the network spread to deliver financial inclusion. Today, we've moved to technology. So basically, the role of IT, in financial inclusion is basically realized from the fact that it has greater population penetration, right? And its ability to serve remote locations at low cost, which is essential for financial inclusion. So down, as we hear from our industry leaders this morning, we'll be getting to know in details how this technology has impacted what we have currently and what the future holds for us, because a lot of people have been talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, APIs, open banking, and all that. So we want to hear from them on how we can drive and how to scale to basically reduce the rate of financial exclusion. So with me on this panel are 5 distinguished personalities, and I'll quickly want to go ahead to introduce them. And I'll begin with Isaiah, Mr. Isaiah Owolabi. Isaiah Owolabi is the CEO of FINA, and we are privileged to have him on this panel today. FINA is focused on accelerating the impact of financial and economic inclusion intervention in Nigeria. Isaiah has over 15 years experience leading strategic efforts to accelerate the impact of economic development and health interventions. He's received numerous awards from renowned and world global bodies. Key to note is the Obama Foundation Scholars in the US and then the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Isaiah is very, very known in the industry. He's worked in several other places, and key to mention is the United States and Australian mission to Nigeria, UNFPA, Access Bank, Dangote, Total, and other private partners. Mr. Isaiah Owolabi, welcome to this program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Next on the panel is Chinasa Collins Oguro. Chinasa is the head of Inclusion for All Advocacy Initiative. She's strategic communication and advocacy specialist with interest in financial inclusion and social development. Chinasa has a 14-year career span, 14 years experience, which spans from financial services, professional services, and development sectors, where she has developed and led several programs to drive social development for low-income earners, youth, and women across West Africa. She currently leads the Inclusion for All, and that platform actually allows for the development and implementation of evidence-based campaigns, and it focuses on financial inclusion of Nigerian poor and vulnerable populations. Chinasa, we're excited to have you this morning, and welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mr. Oluwaseun Adesonya. Adesonya is the CIO of Intellytics, and he's a very, very dynamic professional with strong passion for attaining set objectives. He has decades of experience in various sectors across African countries, the UAE, North America, and Europe. And he's been able to drive new initiatives in emerging markets, towards achieving significant and successful milestones at every given opportunity. His experience cut across Access Bank, Capital Express Insurance, First Bank Insurance, System Specs, and a host of others. Mr. Adesanya, we are excited to have you this morning. Welcome to the panel.
It's a pleasure, everyone, and good morning.
Good morning. Okay, next on the list is Adedoyin Onayemi. Adedoyin is the country manager, Money in Minutes. He's a seasoned manager with 15 years plus progressive experience, providing guidance and leadership in areas of strategy, business advisory, risk management, product development, business intelligence, and process management. Adedoyin is currently the country manager of Money in Minutes Nigeria Limited, which is a UK-originated fintech startup. As a country director, he saddled the responsibility of overseeing the systems, processes, people, and necessary to underpin the business operations and deliver the revenue, expense budgets, and timing, as well as responsible for all client services, operations, projects, and digital platforms. Mr. Adesanya, Mr. Onayemi, we are excited to have you this morning. Welcome to the panel.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here. It's a pleasure having me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So last on my list, last but not the least, is Mr. Oladipo Alabede. Mr. Dipo has 2 years of experience in the banking and in the banking sector. He's an e-business executive who has risen through the ranks and files of the corporate sector through critical thinking and professionalism. He's a member of CB, and he has a combination of technical, business, sales, and managerial acumen that has been the compass guiding him through the various roles and responsibilities across 4 commercial banks in Nigeria and the world's most populous Black nation. He has a background in business administration. Dipo is fondly referred to by friends and colleagues he's worked with up to becoming the current group head of digital banking at Sterling Bank. Mr. Dipo, we are glad to have you this morning. Welcome to the panel.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here. Just a few corrections there. I'm currently the CEO of Clean. That's number 1. And number 2, with my grave years, I didn't spend 2 years in banking. It's about 20 years.
2 decades. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good to have you, Mr. Dipo. All right, so moving on straight, as I said earlier, we'll be just highlighting on all issues around financial inclusion, technologies, looking at the growth so far since the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, where we are, where we ought to be, and basically just get to analyze, the impacts and what the future holds, for us. So I will begin with Mr. Seun. So, Mr. Seun, the technological payment processes has been a topic of debate over time, right? What enhancements or innovations or strategies do you think industry players should adopt to create a faster and a more secure payment process?
Thank you so much for that question. And once again, good morning to everyone. I think it has gone beyond just debate. It has now become something that is part of us. And it is part of us because the end game is based on 2 things. We are looking at creating an environment that guarantees satisfaction to consumer and at the same time, quality of service delivery. To achieve this or to enhance it, definitely this is where the narration of open banking plays a very important role. Beyond the aspect of open banking, this is also an area where collaboration is also key among stakeholders. And in addition to that, the aspect of awareness is also very, very important. Now we all know that 5G probably has come to stay now, meaning that processing transaction will be faster, quicker. If all these are put together, definitely we enhance what we currently have. And a perfect example for us will be the remitter that has helped to revolutionize payment on a secured, more convenient way. 7 years ago, it was difficult for people to pay government. It was very, very difficult for you even to process transaction with government. And at that time, you know how much government was spending on check. But when Remita came into the picture, it changed that. And that tells you what can happen when we go that route of secured and faster platform. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, just to add to that, I think I had open banking and then I had more like easy ways of receiving money, and then the use case is Remita. So moving on, Mr. Dipo, I don't know, in terms of creating, still on question, the first question, how do you think, in your own opinion, that we can, make these payment processes more secure and faster?
Thanks again for that question, and good morning, everybody. I think that the current payment system that we have is actually quite advanced compared to what is obtainable in other African countries and even in some parts of the world. But does it have its own inefficiencies? The answer is yes. It's slow, it's expensive, it's majorly built around the card rails. And then even when you do adopt transfers, it's also a challenge for, especially when you're making person to business payments. It's also a challenge for confirmation and stuff like that. We believe that to achieve financial inclusion, the competitor is actually cash, because why cash is the competition is because the man on the street wants to give 1 naira to the person selling something on the street, and the person selling something on the street wants to receive 1 naira. In the event that that transaction happens through a transfer, then somebody is paying something in the middle. And in the event that that is done through a card and a POS, also the person receiving the money will get less. So what we need to do is to start to look at various technologies and new technologies, such as what Mr. Adesanya rightly mentioned, open banking and all that, so that we can see how we can enhance the possibilities and make it easier for people to come into the financial inclusion net and come into that bracket. Now, the things that for us at Klein, we look at, we feel that the future of payments is mobile. Everybody carries a mobile phone. Today, if you look through the NIBS report, there are about 54 million Nigerians with BVN, which is, and without a BVN, you can't open a bank account. So that means that in essence, there are about 54 million accounts. But if you take a look at the total Nigerian adult population, even if I say that, if I put that at 110 million, that means that there are about 40 million people that are still not within the banking bracket. So how are these guys transacting? How are they saving? How do we bring them into the financial inclusion net? Why are they not transacting through digital platforms? Now, let me just do a final number on that. If you look at the telcos, MTN alone probably boasts of about almost 80 million people. Now, a combination of that with other telcos means that there are about 100 million people or more with cell phones. So it means that to enhance this, we need to adopt a technology that is mobile driven, that sort of is cheap, and it's also easy for anybody to get on board, biometrics or anything like that for the enumeration or the onboarding and all that. So I think that is the enhancement that the future needs to look at, and that's the enhancement that we need to look at as a country and as a people. The person-to-person payments is already being solved with all our bank apps and all that, and then with the recent licensing of PSB banks, it means that more people can come into the financial inclusion net. The question now is, can those people also make payments at merchant location? Can they pay for goods and services? Can they get cash? Cash in Nigeria is still a cash-driven society. So I think those are the key challenges. I think that on the final note, I think that the introduction of the CBDC, even though the adoption is not yet widespread, may solve part of the solutions. technologies such as blockchain technology might also be a way to look at. Companies like Remita and have done tremendous good work, especially on the account number based payments and not card based payments. And I think that we're on the right path. Thank you.
Sure. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adiko, for that insightful one. So what I get is we need to leverage mobile phones. I mean, with over 61% of those in the rural areas that own smartphones today, we believe that, as you said, rightly said, if we leverage on that, we can bring about low-cost products for these owners, right? Thank you very much. Moving on, in addition to what you've just said, I want to ask Mr. Isaiah, in line with these technological innovations we are looking at, has the democratization of finance in Nigeria been able to support the drive for financial inclusion? Mr. Isaiah.
Thank you very much for your question. I think if you look at it from the way we look at things at EFINA, we look at it from a lens of data and how there's been sort of transition over the years. And from when EFINA started in 2007, 2008 to data in 2020 through the Access to Financial Services Survey, you will realize that there is growth in terms of access to financial services, both from the non-formal and the formal sector. But there's still big opportunities in terms of understanding what this access means for people, especially people at the bottom of the pyramid. As we all know, the bottom line principle of the Sustainable Development Goal is to leave no one behind. And that sort of aligns with the principle of financial inclusion to make sure that the most important people are not being ignored. So if you still look at the financial inclusion data in Nigeria, you realize that those living in rural communities, the poorest of the poor, that is the bottom of the pyramid, are still struggling to have access to finance and financial services. And especially when you also think about formal financial services. The current rate of financial inclusion in Nigeria is at 70% or about 70%. And that's bringing non-formal and formal together to make the 70%. But data has also shown us that there are higher chances for people to live to their full potential when they are formally financially included. If you think about the democratization of financial inclusion in Nigeria, definitely it has presented opportunity for a lot of people to be financially included, especially people in rural areas, technology. Previous speakers talked about how mobile digital technology and everything has been very helpful. But there are other conversations around how privacy, issues related to privacy, cybersecurity issues, and so many other issues could also be a threat, both on the demand and the supply side of democratizing finance, and how that could, on the long term, impact what access to financial services would mean. But I'd like to see positives in whatever has happened. I think I would definitely say that it's definitely increased access to financial services, especially for those who need it most. And it has definitely presented promise. And that's the fact that it's also not just helping people have access to finance, but it's helping people to also connect access to financial services to real sector opportunities, to helping them to have access to good health, to paying for the education of their children, and to also run their businesses well. It's been able to do that, but there are also big opportunities in terms of improvement. I'll leave it at that for now and let you continue the conversation.
All right, thank you very much, Isaiah, for that insightful one. We hear that there are still a whole lot of opportunities in this space, and we are aware that EFINA has done a whole lot of research, when it comes to the underbanked, the underserved, and all that. So speaking to research, so let me take you to Chinasa this time around. Research actually shows that there's a relationship between technology, growth, and social outcomes, which tends to be persistent and can have long-term effects, on the beneficiaries or the users, So Chinasa, how much has this affected Nigeria's technological environment so far?
Thank you very much for the question, Steve, and good morning to all the attendees. So first, I'll start with the work that we do at Inclusion for All to create some context for this. So our goal is to care for the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, the poor and the marginalized. And care means that we understand that they're the most, they're the likely excluded populations from formal inclusion. And what we're trying to do at Inclusion for All is to use data to advocate for the removal of these barriers that prevent them from gaining access to financial inclusion. Now, to your question about technology, social outcomes, and growth. First of all, we see globally that governments around the world are increasingly leveraging the spread of digital technologies to see how they can improve and serve their citizenry and residents better. And so you see where social grants and programs like that are being digitized so that they can send these cash transfers, for instance, to the beneficiaries directly to their mobile money wallets or to their bank accounts. And then you also see where public services are increasingly utilizing digital identification and digital financial channels. Coming to Nigeria, the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy has done a great job in trying to digitize its citizenry. So basically the drive for digital identity, what we know as the National Identity Number or NIN. This is a barrier that we've identified at Inclusion for All that prevents poor and marginalized communities from gaining access to formal inclusion. And to understand why this is important, if we look at what the benefit of ID is to individuals, first, it drives financial inclusion. So we've seen a direct linkage between ID ownership and poverty. So the poorest are less likely to own ID, which means they're less likely to be included and have access to financial services, which is a key requirement. So we don't believe that owning ID will create financial inclusion, but we understand that it's dependent on it. So imagine someone who has access to a bank. You can't actually open an account if you don't have the requisite ID. You don't have access to other social programs if you don't have identity. So it's a big piece, and technology is a key enabler for that. And that's what the Ministry of Digital Economy and Communications is doing. So we have over 89 million Nigerians who are enrolled on the National Identity Number system. But we're also concerned that as much as we have this increased enrollment, the groups that are most likely excluded are still the people we care about who live in the rural communities, who live in the hard-to-reach communities. And with everything, there's nothing that doesn't have its challenges. So we understand that there's data protection risks, there's exclusion errors that can inadvertently increase the digital divide. But at the end of the day, technology is here to play a key role to make this efficient and to block these gaps and to have the right regulatory policies and sort of to also have the right legal frameworks to address some of these issues. So finally, to just say that for governments to ensure that the digital economy thrives and that everybody is included, they have to design solutions and policies that have these excluded populations in mind so that they're not further excluded. So that would be my point for now. Thank you.
All right, Chinasa, thanks so much. What I hear is for most of these programs to the underserved, they have to digitize these programs. And I'm sure that was one of the things that have led to, real-time payments in Nigeria today. So I'll come back to you on that, on this kind of innovations around digitization, especially for those segments of the population, which is our core focus, in driving financial inclusion. But before then, let me get to Adedoyin. Real-time payments have basically become norm, even for cross-border transactions. We hope that we'll get to that point sometime very, very soon, you know. Adedoyin, what is the necessary technology investment, you know, needed to achieve this goal? You know, for us to moving from doing NIPs in Nigeria, want to achieve real-time payments between Nigeria and other countries, you know, which we know, as Chinasa mentioned, will help us drive inclusion of everybody, you know. What do you think, you know, is the necessary technological investments for us to achieve this goal?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you once again for inviting me to share my thoughts on this platform. And taking it from what everyone has said, we see that there is a big opportunity. There are lots of people in our payment space at this particular time. And one of the things that is needed at this time is to have the customers being satisfied. But we've been having issues around our payment system not being very fast, issues around the payments not being effective, and most especially during end of the month, we find out that we can't do transactions. So basically, two things that are critical that we need to invest in, and which is already being done by NIBSS and some of the other payment processors and payment gateway providers, are looking at the database, looking at a reconciliation system that enables us to settle real-time transactions as it comes. And we've seen challenges that, oh, I did a transaction and it wasn't reversed, or I didn't get the reversal until 48 hours. But with the quantum ledger database, it helps reconciliations. You see transactions, and it's going to prevent people from not being frustrated in their transactions. The other thing also is enhancing the payment rail. So looking at our payment rail using the RTGS, and also looking at cross-border transactions, which some fintechs are already doing. Once the payment rail is enhanced to accommodate the level of transactions we'll be seeing, because we have the PSB now, we have cross-border transactions, fintech companies dealing with that. We have our daily payment companies doing transactions. All these things are needed. We need a robust payment system to ensure that we have a good real-time payment solution in Nigeria, and we're on our way there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adedoyin. I want to support you too, to say yes, truly we are actually on our way there. But I mean, it still requires a whole lot of work, and I mean more, you know, necessary technological investments. You know, Chinasa, what do you think? What do you think around these investments, you know, for us to achieve this? Adedoyin has mentioned enhancing the payment rail, RTGS. He has talked about the quantum database. Do you have any other ideas or innovations that can be put to achieving, I mean, this technological investment goals and all?
Thanks, Stephen. Absolutely, I agree that there's a lot of investment that needs to put into these processes and solutions, just so that, again, trying to reach the people that are most likely excluded, who are the poor and the marginalized communities. First of all, that we understand that there needs to be intensive investments, and that's part of the challenge. So currently, in as much as there's a drive for new enrollment, we understand, for instance, that people in these communities still have connectivity issues. And so the rural telephony infrastructure already is a barrier. And so there's so many areas that need to be addressed, and it requires a lot of, funds to be pushed or pumped into it to make that thrive. So yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let me just take it a bit further, looking at, one of the innovations, technological innovations we are talking about, we are looking at, digital economy, digital currencies and all that. So I want to hear the thoughts of Mr. Dipo. We've seen a lot of countries launch their digital currencies today, right? And the idea for them is just to maybe retain control or economic policies and all that. How does this affect our current payment process, and the providers? I don't want to just hit it on to say e-Naira, but I mean, a lot of countries do digital currencies today, and it's definitely going to reshape the dynamics around payments in Nigeria too. So how does this affect our current payment processes and for the providers too?
Okay. Thanks, Stephen, for that question. Before I answer, I would just like to attempt to add a word to what Chinasa had mentioned around the new technologies that can also help cross-border payments. I recall that earlier this year, the Pan-African Payment System was launched, PAPS, I think it was in Ghana. And that system is designed to foster cross-border payments, because today when you are making payments across Africa, is still pegged behind the dollar, and it doesn't make sense if I'm sending Ghanaian cedis to Nigeria and we are still pegging it against the dollar. So I think that the adoption of the PAPS at some point in time will still help to reach the person that is working in Ghana and has the mother in the village somewhere in Asaba to receive money. So I think that is something that will happen. Yeah, the connectivity issues are there, but I think that with the introduction of 5G into the market, what the telcos I expect will do is that they will concentrate the 5G into the urban cities and the urban areas, and then the 4G and the 3G will now be concentrated into the rural areas. So we see a future there. Now coming back to the CBDC, yes, quite a lot of countries have adopted or have started exploring the adoption of CBDC. Even America there's a conversation in the US that there's going to be an e-dollar, and Nigeria, being one of the foremost countries in payments, have already launched the e-Naira. Now, it's early days to assess the impact of the e-Naira in the financial system in Nigeria today, because the adoption has not picked up as expected. You recall that when the e-Naira was launched, a lot of it did not receive the kind of reception from people. We expect that is going to change over time. A lot of communities and a lot of people in Nigeria have started thinking of how the e-Naira is going to be used to make payments and also make payments at merchant locations. Will it affect the banking community? I don't think so. I think that the e-Naira is a digital version of the Naira, and it's going to be meant for smaller payments and not large ticket transactions, according to what the CBN has said. I think what the CBN is trying to do is now to create a lot of awareness around it, create a lot of use cases around it, and also get merchants to be able to accept it. And they are also liberalizing the way companies can integrate to the e-Naira. So what you find now is that they're allowing fintechs to also integrate to the e-Naira platform and then take it up. Before they wanted to, it looked as if CBN wanted to run the e-Naira on its own through the banks. And I think that's really where the challenges are. The other challenges I see as well is still privacy and also cybersecurity theft. Cybersecurity as well, because People believe that once you are doing your transaction on the eNaira or any of the CBDCs, and that means that the government have visibility into exactly what you're doing, and they can also hold your money or decide to do one or two things with it. And then also cybersecurity as well. I think that it is still, in terms of financial inclusion, I think that it's still the best vehicle that we can leverage on as a country to drive financial inclusion, because number one, it makes the transaction fee cheap, really, really cheap. It brings it to zero, almost zero. Number two is that there are not so many third parties involved. So a typical card transaction will probably involve like 5 different entities before that transaction. The settlement doesn't even happen instantly. The CBDC ensures that that money gets to the other beneficiary instantly. And that's, again, like I said in my earlier comments, the competition is cash, really. And so it needs to be able to mimic cash as much as possible. And that's where the CBDC really works. And if you look at the people that Chinasa mentioned in the rural areas, they typically prefer to keep their cash because they know that 1 naira under my pillow is 1 naira under my pillow. There's no bank charges. There's nobody taking anything out of it. When I'm giving it to this other person, it is the same amount of 1 naira, right? And I think that putting in a digital form on a mobile phone is what can make it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I mean, I see hope in a whole lot of these things when it comes to adoption and all that. But one of the other things you mentioned is around I mean, a lot of the competition is cash, and then people need awareness, you know. So awareness, talking about awareness, I know FINA has done a whole lot of work, you know, when it comes to the literacy, financial literacy, creating awareness, you know, and all that. So one of the questions that just popped up is maybe, and I'll put this to Mr. Isaiah, is literacy a sizable gap that needs to be filled in Nigeria for financial inclusion to happen? You know, going by all the research FINA has done, you know, what do you think about this, sir?
Well, to give a straight answer to that, I would say yes. And that's because of a lot of reasons. If you look at the trajectory of the data and the reality on the ground, to a very large extent, literacy is very much connected to financial inclusion or financial inclusion rate. In communities where you have high level of literacy, there are high chances of being financially included. And in communities where you have low levels of literacy, there's also chances of low level of financial inclusion. However, there are other indicators or parameters that could definitely affect access to financial services or uptake of financial services. As we know, in states like Yobe and other states in the northern part of Nigeria, especially in the northeastern part of Nigeria, you realize that literacy level may be as low as 30-something%, 40-something%. And you also see that financial inclusion rates in these states are actually one of the lowest in Nigeria. But can we only say it's because of literacy that these levels are low? Definitely. There's security challenges, there are other economic challenges that affect this. But we also like to have a thorough deep dive into what definition of literacy looks like and how financial services and products have been designed to meet the needs of the bottom of the pyramid. When we measure level of literacy, and when most programs or intervention measure levels of literacy, they measure their ability to read or write in English language. For many of the states that actually have very low levels of reading or writing in English, you realize that in terms of their ability to read, write, or understand in their local language, it can be up to 60 to 70% in some of the states. What does that mean? If financial services or product integrates their language, their local language into, for example, USSD codes and other forms of communication or interaction in the value chain of providing financial services? Does it present unique opportunities for people to uptake or to use or to ask questions about the services better? So there are so many questions around that. It's just the same way we might think about access to digital financial services and understand the fact that even to have that, we need to understand that we need to create digital literacy programs as the bottom line principle to accelerate the impact of DFS, Digital Financial Service Program, because people need to be digital literate before you even talk about the ability to use any digital product. So I would leave it at that. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Isaiah, thank you very much. I see we have some questions coming in. We want to quickly take that for the sake of time. But before then, maybe in just a minute or two, Adedoyin, your hand is up. I know you wanted to share on that, right? Please, you can go ahead. And then if you can just touch a bit on collaboration between the new entrants and incumbent payment providers.
Okay.
In just a minute or two, yeah.
Yeah, just to quickly add to what Mr. Isaiah said, that in literacy is very important in digital inclusion, in financial inclusion. But what we are seeing now, and we have people like Chinasa having like a sort of education that they're educating this bottom of the pyramid, this segment of the market on how to use transactions. So it's no longer in the English language. They're using pictures, they're using different things to make sure that they are educated or they're on the product, the usage, and the benefit to them. And we're seeing that we are seeing the importance of this education in the usage, in the accessibility of financial product in the rural areas. That's that on that. And looking at collaboration amongst the incumbent and the new entrants. Yeah. From touching on what Mr. Dikwa said, the payment space is, transactions are quite large, that 4 or 5 segments or processes are involved in transactions. So there's no way you won't collaborate. It's not longer competitions, and people are now seeing that for them to even make progress in our drive to increase financial inclusion, to drive the payment system, we need to collaborate. You could see that with the issue around the USSD code, buying airtime with the banks and fintechs and telcos, that the government had to step in that. And forums like this, we've seen people talk about collaboration. The deposit money banks are also preaching collaborations. Fintechs also are preaching collaboration. So as we go further, we'll see more collaboration to drive the ecosystem for more efficiency. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I get to agree with you on that point. So, I mean, just to touch on a bit of the questions we've been getting from the attendees, okay, so we can say financial literacy and financial inclusion work hand in hand. I mean, and the more you get to teach these guys, the more they're able to use those services, and they're able to leverage on digitized payment options, and all that. So let me just, in 30 seconds, Chinasa, what's the level of digitization of government aid, salaries, and payments? You talked about, I think you mentioned something around payments through government system and all that, and okay, we've talked about the financial literacy, so at what level can government digitize all these payments? And I mean, looking at literacy, how will it aid adoption for the people that, because bearing in mind, they are low level of education and all?
Thanks, Stephen. I think that as Adedoyin has mentioned, and I think a couple of other people have mentioned, I think Isaiah as well, the first thing is to understand how do these people consume information, how do they digest information, and then speaking the language that they understand. And so going to digitization, it is what channels can I reach these people on so that I can educate them if I was going to reach them using a digital platform. And we know that the populations that we care about, so at the bottom of the pyramid, because again of the infrastructural gap, at the moment, the best way to reach them is probably through a radio or to go to their communities, community outreaches, etc. But in the long term, when our economy is digitized enough and everybody is sort of now has access to those digital platforms, is to understand which channels are they available and do they have access to that's affordable to them. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. Let me quickly run to Mr. Sheung. Sheung, please go ahead.
So thanks for that. I've heard so much about people talking about awareness, and when we talk about awareness, it's more or less we are only focusing on the consumer, but there is also the bit of awareness for players too. Most of the players actually don't even have intelligence of the kind of service these people. And I'll give you an instance. I've been to 442 markets in Lagos, and the feedback I got was quite surprising when some of these market women said to me that all these people want is our money for deposit. They don't know what we are going through or how they will be of help. And the information we gather also showed that some of them run from pillar to pillar because they use money, credit to entice them. So there is also the bit of gap in terms of awareness for players, industry players, to know that beyond just deposit, there's so much that these market people need. These people at the bottom of the pyramid. Let me also shock you. The totality of transaction across all payment platforms, banks, and so on and so forth is just 7.9% of the entire financial ecosystem. So meaning 92.8% thereabout is still in the hand of informal sector. So there is a lot of awareness that also needs to be done on this part of regulators and also players. The other thing I also want to mention on the aspect of what are the other investments, of course, investment needs to be done in the awareness, collaboration, connectivity. And let me use this opportunity to also mention the aspect of the Pan-African Payment Settlement System, which is PAPS, which I believe is also a game changer in terms of cross-border transaction across Africa, and it's something everybody needs to come on board and embrace as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that one. So we just have less than 2 minutes to go. And I mean, just to wrap up finally, we've looked at, the possibilities of technology, changing the entire landscape of payment, and all that. So just final word from each person. I don't know how we can take it in 30 seconds. Yeah, so, final word. Chinasa.
Yes, thanks, Stephen. I think we have a bit more
10
time.
10 seconds, please. Yeah.
I think we have a bit more time, but anyways, so for me, I was going to touch again a bit on cross-border payments, and just to highlight that there's a huge opportunity for financial inclusion, just again, because a large proportion of the trade that goes on in Africa is informal across the borders, and there's over 300 million people who are in those locations. So their size and the demographic that they have, they are women and youth. It's important that these people are included and using the right solution. So I like that Dipo and Doyin just mentioned PAPS, and that's something that we're looking to run a campaign on to make sure that PAPS is a solution that's been designed to ensure that those people who need it the most, who inhabit those borderlands, are not excluded, right? So it's a fantastic step in the right direction, but how do we ensure that the people who need it the most have access to it? Because currently they have to rely on different payment systems that makes it more expensive for them to transact cross-border and in fact eat into their profit margins. I was also going to touch on the importance of awareness. The work we do at Inclusion for All is multifaceted, and it also allows for multi-actors to be engaged. So to Doyin's point about people, the sector players, the players in the sector, in the industry also need awareness. the work we try to do is to get as much data to understand the needs of the people that we're trying to target, and then share that information across board so that people design for purpose, and also the people that we're targeting get the right kind of solutions and interventions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chinasa, for that one. I think we might just need to wrap up now. And before we go, I want to especially thank all of you, for taking our time to join us on this call. And for those who have listened in, our attendees, we are glad you joined the call. And before we quickly run, I will want to invite Mr. Oluwaseun, to wrap up for us.
Okay, thanks so much. I think so much has been said, and I want to say thank you to everyone, the panelists and all the people who are joining us all over the world. The good thing is Nigeria has actually evolved, and probably we have even far ahead of other people, but there are still room for improvement, and that's the reason why we believe this section definitely has helped to highlight areas, especially in terms of awareness, in terms of technology that we need to be more innovative. And there is also the bit of collaboration that we need to have so that a lot can be done in terms of inclusion. But I want to guarantee that I think we're on the right track, and we hope that by the next year that we're having this week, we have good story to tell. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, our wonderful anchor.
Okay, so thank you very much, Zashe. Before we go, I just have one question on the chat, which is how can we encourage the growth of financial literacy through the services we offer for the population? For the population to understand and enjoy some of these financial services. I think they need some form of financial literacy.
So I think probably the best answer to that is, who are you developing those services for? Is it based on the market need, or you just believe that they will need it? Oftentimes, what we realize is that people just introduce services without even having the understanding. And that's where the market intelligence plays a key role in helping to develop solutions that meet the need of the market. So it's more around still awareness. Now it is now awareness on the part of those who are actually providing those services to the market. So I want to say, I think Chinasa is doing great with our team, and of course, Efina has been a great advocate, and I think Efina has even done much more than even the regulators. So I think we're on the right track, and I believe that there are a lot of lessons from this section that both players and regulators can take back to enhance financial inclusion in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. So at this point, I want to hand over to our coordinator to quickly close for us.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a very wonderful and insightful time. I know time is a good friend when it comes to situations like this and topics like this. The discussion continues, but before we go, I would just like each person to just give a final word in 30 seconds. So I'll start with Mr. Adepo Alabede.
Okay, thank you. I think my final word will be that there's still a big opportunity for financial inclusion. I think that the technology is still there. I think that a lot of collaboration needs to happen, meaning that telcos, banks, financial service providers need to come together. And finally, I think that, like as we've really rightly mentioned in this session, a lot of awareness needs to happen both with the providers and also with the consumers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Owolabi. Over to you. Your final word, 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much. I think some of the biggest opportunities to see collaboration as the biggest tool for competition. We need to collaborate, and we also need to make sure that we are connecting financial inclusion to real sector interventions to make sure it leads to economic inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Chinasa?
My final word is to say that the excluded populations need to be considered every time a policy is being designed, anytime an intervention is being designed with the poor in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Onayemi.
Yeah, with the right amount of collaboration and adoption of product, both from the consumer and from the service provider, and an improvement of the payment system, I see a better and more robust payment ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Adesoya, 30 seconds.
Okay, so like everyone have said, we need to enhance our awareness efforts such that all stakeholders realize the demons that we need to kick out of the room, which is the aspect of ignorance. I believe with more collaboration, we can achieve much more than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the moderator, any final word from you?
Yes, for me, technology is key for us to scale financial inclusion, and then collaboration is also very, very key for us to deliver the desired value propositions for the underserved. And once we come together with all the innovations, the telcos, the banks, the fintech, super agents, PSSPs, I believe that we'll definitely get to bridge the gap, with data research coming from the likes of FINA and all. So, I mean, we're on the right track, and I believe that we'll definitely get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody, for contributing to this session. For us at Financial Inclusion Africa, Financial Inclusion Nigeria, the tandem is the discussion continues. So we still have more time to continue to discuss, to collaborate. It's been a wonderful time with you all. I wish you all a pleasant day. For all our viewers all around the world, thank you for coming to listen to us and to hear us out, and for your questions. I know there's some questions we did not take, but we'll surely attend to them in very other opportunities that we have to discuss on issues that surrounds financial inclusion technology across the globe and in Africa and in Nigeria. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time. You all have a blessed day. Thank you.